Welcome to our Old Forest Academy, the cradle of our university, where forestry in Eberswalde started about 190 years ago. So we this year had our 190th anniversary, and as a kind of birthday present, we are celebrating the launch of the new international master program, Biom. So, welcome to Eberswalde, welcome to the Old Forest Academy. Well, we welcome heartily our State Secretary, Tobias Düno. Thank you for coming. And we are happy that, well, our advisory board of Michael Suckow, Peter Südbeck and Lutz Möller are present and are helping us with the start of our new career of Biosphere Reserve Management. And we are very thankful for many other guests, for many students which are already enrolled in this new master career, and thankful to all the colleagues who helped in the development of this program. Let me briefly look back on the past 2.5 very dynamic years. We submitted our application for the future program in October 2018 as a collective of 9 professors of the departments of Forest and Environment, Landscape Use and Conservation, and also of Sustainable Economy. And all this activity was coordinated by the Vice President for Research and Transfer, Professor Alexander Friem. And never forget the sentence, machen ist wie wollen, nur krasser. Or in English, don't talk about it, just do it. And we did. Well, I'm happy that I can announce the further speakers, and I'd like to start with our Secretary of State, Tobias Düno. Welcome.
You did an excellent choice to enroll here in Eberswalde, because Eberswalde may look a little bit small if you look from Berlin or from Paris or from New York City, but I think the university here in Eberswalde is one of the, and I really mean what I'm saying, is one of the most interesting in Brandenburg, and maybe even one of the most interesting universities in Germany. A prime example of this is the Biosphere Reserve Institute, which we are honoring today. Only recently founded, it's the world's first institute dedicated to scientifically supporting and developing biosphere reserves. The name Biosphere Reserve Management Master's Degree Program, which we are launching today, is another impressive addition. The new program will help to emphasize the importance of natural reserves in Brandenburg, Germany, and worldwide. In this program, you, the students, will learn what sustainable development in the world of biosphere reserves means. And you will develop the tools and skills to master the numerous tasks in modern areas for sustainable development. Our aim is to strengthen the research and teaching of the universities in a targeted manner, to make them more appealing to young scientists, to make them more competitive when it comes to research, and to increase the number of students.
And now this day is a day with the Biosphere study new for Germany, Man and Biosphere Study Program, I think new for Europe, and it is so important for the question of future.
We can give you practical exercises, management trainings, projects, national and international projects, and our contact person, she's here, is Kirsten Meurer. It's so necessary to have to make a master program and to create people who are engaged with a lot of knowledge in different subjects, and I think much more empathy and power. And we need both men and women too.
As you said, we represent the organization of all national parks, all biosphere reserves. Therefore, we are here today and lots of nature parks all over Germany. It's really an honor for me to be part of this birthday today, of this master degree, the first master degree of Biosphere Reserve Management all over Germany. We've heard about it. It's very wonderful. Together with this, with your university, with the Michael Suckow Stiftung, we founded the Biosphere Reserve Center just to foster, just to support this important idea of biosphere reserves. In my opinion, that is the idea of promoting nature conservation and sustainability all over the world for the next decades. In terms of nature conservation, this is a model and this is forward-looking strategy for successful action in terms of halting biodiversity loss, encouraging sustainable development all over the world, and developing new concepts of education and knowledge sharing. All UNESCO biosphere reserves have the task to bring themselves in the network of biosphere reserves in a worldwide perspective. This means taking our responsibility for future generations in many countries, 124, I guess by now, of our wonderful world. And I'm really convinced that we need high qualified people to work on this subject, to be able to fill all these demands in future, to think in a cross-linked way between sectors and stakeholders, interdisciplinary, international, and always in a broad scope. And furthermore, we need in-depth knowledge on ecological requirements of species and habitats, social interactions and trends, and land use practices now and then. And to bring all these demands together, this master degree was needed, of course, and therefore we as the German Biosphere Reserves are happy that this first semester will start today, which will be fully supported by us. Moreover, in terms of employment market, I'm convinced there will be a rising chance for all of you new students because we have a demand of well-qualified new people in our family for this challenging jobs. You might have noticed by now, biosphere management means to be competent in different themes, cross-linked, communicative, open-minded.
There could not be a better moment to study that than right now. Why would I tell that? I mean, all of us are completely shattered to pieces by this fundamental change that we all have in our faces right now through the COVID-19 pandemic. It's all over the world. Countries are collapsing. Millions, hundreds of millions of people are dropping into poverty. Progress over the last 20 years is lost in many places in education, in decent work all over the world. But this crisis, we have had many crises before, but this crisis is different in a crucial way. In many places around the world, people are standing up, not only the young people, also politicians, the general public. They say COVID-19 is important and it's crucial, but there is a much, much more important crisis behind it. Climate change, the loss of biodiversity. Of course, we need strong government regulation. We need financial instruments. We need new technology and innovation. Of course, we need scientific research. We need education of people of all ages. Of course, we need all that. But we also need places where we really make progress on the ground. And luckily, we have them already. These are the UNESCO Biosphere Reserves for which you have enrolled for this master program. We need you. We need people who think, as Peter has just said before, who think across sectors, who think across different scientific disciplines, who are able to understand different scientific terminologies, but also are able to communicate with local stakeholders, with farmers, with entrepreneurs from local businesses, with the mayor of the village council. So we need communication skills. We need also people who are inspiring their team to build up joint action, and we need stamina, because stamina is required, because sustainable development success is not possible in a 1 or 2 year process. So sustainable development processes often need 5 years, 10 years to be successful. And that requires soft skills. And I hope that you are also really working on soft skills in this context to be able to engage with stakeholders. I'm a newly appointed professor for international nature conservation and UNESCO Biosphere Reserves. And I joined this wonderful team here at Eberswalde University this year in June. So, and since that, I'm working together with my colleagues to create our new master program, and it's a great pleasure doing that and being able to, having the opportunity here to start such an innovative master program. So it's 4 semesters, it's 2 years, and what is especially interesting is that it's a joint effort of different faculties of this university. So 3 faculties are in here, and professors and staff from 3 faculties is working together to create the content for this master program. Not just in Germany, but worldwide. So our idea is, this is also why we are signing these partnership agreements later on. The intention is to work together real close and to get our students in contact with the Biosphere Reserves administrations, to get to know each other so that you have a realistic idea of what the work in a Biosphere Reserve looks like, and also for the Biosphere Reserve administrations.
So just to summarize, because I was also asked to give some maybe task to the new master course. So our summary is Biosphere Reserves are really a good model site for sustainable development and innovation, community-based conservation, for monitoring applied science, what you're also doing here. But the big challenge will always be, how can you achieve sustainability and quality? For example, in business, I was mentioning ecotourism before. You start something which sounds so excellent, you set up structures, you train people, and in the end, it's dripping, and in the end, it's not working. How can you sustain political support? Very important for also in terms of finance and inhabitants backing. You always have to take people with you so that they support their own environment, their biosphere reserve. And of course, the question is always the key question for all biosphere reserves around: how do we get enough funding, regular funding, for the very unsexy and boring tasks like biosphere reserve administration and management?
Your suggestion for future Biosphere Reserves managers from your experience, in which area should we qualify? Like, what are the most important skills from your perspective, from the experience that you have, that is maybe lacking or that we should improve?
Interesting question. Me coming from Greifswald University, from a very much integrated study course, and seeing conservation always being confronted by human beings, I would say the most required is actually that you have a broad view, that you can understand a farmer, a scientist, a biologist, all these different sectors, and still have an understanding where your way for the biosphere reserve is. You need to understand all these different sectors to take the right decision for the development of a biosphere reserve.
I think that is useful to think about biosphere reserves. They're actually about conversations. They're conversations that look obliquely at the global sustainable development debate. In other words, look at it slightly from one side. What is it that we're really talking about in sustainable development? Is it development? Never mind the sustainable, let's whisper it. Or is it sustainable and let's whisper the development? What actually do we mean? And how then are these special places able to actually help deliver sustainable development? So we need to promote that new thinking, new ideas, new energy. And that, I think, is what biosphere reserves can do. I've noticed in the evolution of biosphere reserves that they really, the ones that now are part of that 701 list that Lutz Müller mentioned, and I'm sure after the council meeting at the end of this month there will be more, that each of those actually has a key role to play in promoting new ideas. They're spaces that are not just conservation zones, they're spaces which actually allow for new thoughts to develop, new places to experiment. So the challenge is then in our conversations. We need to think about ecosystem services, great idea, but do we really understand what ecosystem services are? We can't actually pick and choose ecosystem services like you can in a sweet shop. Ecosystem services come in one big package, and we need to think about all of them, all of the services, both good and perhaps sometimes not so good. People's needs for ecosystem services change. There's the whole concept of resilience. It decreases. What about disturbances in the environment? What about the changes, the rapidity of changes? People have become essentially the strongest driver in ecosystem change, and that's the critical issue. And then, of course, ecosystems are complex, and our knowledge is rather limited. So there's no best practice, and this is, I think, for the students, important thing to think about. Each of those 701 biosphere reserves is different, and they all have different things to offer, and they all have strengths, and they all have weaknesses. None of them are perfect, and it's unlikely that they ever would be. So don't ever look for the perfect biosphere reserve. Look for the strengths in the biosphere reserves that you're interested in. And that means that management of biosphere reserves has to be adapted to the local situations, the local place. It's not, you can't reach for a manual that says, here's how to manage a biosphere reserve, because it doesn't exist. There are general principles you can learn, and you should. But each of those individual biosphere reserves requires taking those principles and putting them into the local context. So how can biosphere reserves help thinking through these conversations? So the ideal outcome should be a more energized and global approach to sustainable development. And that's what and where these special places can help us do. The outcome really has to be related, or should be related, to UN and related global progress to realize this mythical green economy. I say mythical, it's attainable, but at the moment it still appears to me to be mythical. Biosphere reserves have a key role to achieving that globally. It, of course, can also and should be reinforcing achievements under the different Rio Conventions, Biodiversity Convention, climate change, etc., and the SDGs. And finally, contribute in a real way to better environmental futures through community engagement. You heard, I think, about the way in which there are three different elements to the course. One of them was about communication. And that's, again, how the course very much links, I think, to these things. I hadn't seen that before I wrote this, so this is not kind of prearranged or pre-cooked. This is what I think, and it's obviously what you're doing, which is terrific.
Most of my stuff is in the administration since 26 to 30 years now. That means in the next, let's say, 4 to 6 years, we will have a change of generations, complete change of generation in the administration. And so we will have a huge need for well-educated and enthusiastic and powerful people. And this phase is now starting the next years. So it was really the last minute that this study course started for our needs.